Next up is Kimberley Gardiner, the VP and Chief Marketing Officer of Mitsubishi Motors North America. Kimberley is responsible for overseeing all marketing communications activities for Mitsubishi in the United States, including brand strategy, digital, social and broadcast advertising, creative development, strategic planning, retail marketing, CRM, and data analytics. Wow. Welcome, Kimberley, live from the back of your car.
Great to be here, Andrea, and great to see you, Gary.
Great to see you, Kimberley. This is so on brand. I mean, to be actually in the back of your car, I mean, this is so well done.
Yeah, you know what? Like I said before, this is the perfect place to have a call, right? It's quiet. I've got my, hotspot going with the Wi-Fi, so it's good.
Thanks for joining us. Kimberley, why don't you create some context for the audience? Give us a little bit about you and your career journey, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in automotive for all of 2 decades now. I started when I was really young. One of the things I like to tell people about, what you might think about automotive is it's maybe slow paced, a bit traditional in terms of its nature. What attracted me to automotive in the first place was really the idea of change and about bringing change. And I was super excited when I read in grad school about this thing called the Prius and Toyota and what they were doing in terms of sustainability and alternative powertrains. And I thought, wow, what a great opportunity to make a big impact on an industry and really on consumers' lives. I've always found automotive so fascinating because the consumer life cycle and the interaction with the shopping process and ownership, it can be months and years really. So, I've stayed in it this long because I see so much opportunity to really try things differently and really appeal to new customers.
And as a child, were you were you a good student? Were you entrepreneurial? Were you drawing, singing, just to take it a little bit further back?
You know what? I guess I always thought of myself as somebody who could make things better. I grew up in a household, single parent, taking care of my younger sister since I was really young. I always had this sense of, I'm here to kind of take care of others and make things a little bit better. And I think that was a really nice fit for me, again, with automotive and with Toyota, especially, which is all about continuous improvement and trying to, make the world a little bit of a better place. I'm one of these people, and maybe it sounds zen or whatever, but it is what it is. And it's just, I feel like I'm here to make a positive impact. That is my purpose.
I'll go right into something I couldn't wait to speak to you about. You and I both know Jack Hollis. And as I've gotten to know you a little bit better, this concept of change agent really sticks with me, of your ambition. And obviously you wouldn't be at this point in your career if it wasn't also based on your execution. Again, for the entrepreneurs that are watching right now, or the students, because we have a very broad mix of individuals. And then obviously for a lot of your contemporaries that are watching this, what does it mean to be a change agent within a big organization? When I talk to entrepreneurs about my life in corporate land, they're always fascinated by the inability for big brands to do anything. They're just so, right. And so, and basically in hindsight, here I am, 11 years into it, and the makeup of the individuals that are on this show, the people I spend my time with, the ones that have become my friends outside of work, the ones that we target to do business with, I've come to realize oh, right. We're only looking for change agents because we're innovating. Thus we have no shot. We're dead on arrival when we talk to 85% of the people in marketing, because they believe in the other things that are out there to be able to do with your money. And what does it mean to be a change agent? Do you even think of yourself that way? What are the challenges and what makes it fun? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, I love it. First and foremost, yes, absolutely a change agent. I've never been afraid of change. I welcome it with open arms. I think it fuels me in what I do. And I would say to entrepreneurs or others who are wondering what that's like in a big organization that tends to move a bit slow, you know what, if you love what you do, if you love what you market, if you love the category that you're in, like I do, it fuels that passion, it fuels that patience at the same time, because you got to have both. Right? You got to have the passion to want to change. You have to see into the future. You have to be strategic and always think a little bit ahead about the what ifs. What if I paired something here with something over there? What would that look like and why? And then you have to have the patience to say, okay, how do I then sell that idea or sell that insight into the organization in a way that others are going to listen? Because it can be really easy to just follow one path. and it's a safer path, and it's the status quo. And so my job as a change agent is to make sure that I really educate others. I really get them excited about what could be, and I tell it to them in their own language. You know, I talk in sales language. I talk in after sales language. I talk in CX language. I don't come along as here's marketing trying to change the world and it's all about us. No way. It's going to be, you know, dead stop. We're not going to go anywhere. If I talk in terms of other people's and other departments' objectives and what they're looking for, that's when I see their minds open up to change, and they think, oh, you know what? Now that you mention it, that's really exciting. I like that idea because it helps me too. And I build that coalition of support early on when we're talking about trying something a bit different.
You're contextualizing and reverse engineering their objectives, not yours.
100%.
And you feel like that skill set translates both in making things real in a B2B environment and also ultimately in the work that's put out to the world to create consideration on the consumer end?
Yeah, yeah, well said, exactly. And you know what, I think too, with established brands, like we were talking about earlier, and that brand love, I think a lot of consumers want that consistency, right? They want that stability. They want to know that brands are going to be there for them, especially now. But at the same time, I think we all realize we've got to innovate. We've got to try something a bit different. And for automotive too, we've got to look outside the category. You know, and I know you're a proponent of this too, Gary. I mean, you've often talked about that when I've watched a lot of your content. You know, it's how do you really think outside of where you are in your world? Because that's where those sparks can really come from.
Yeah, I think that's right. Talk to me about something, you know, it's funny, the role, you have this incredible role, and Mitsubishi is an incredibly big company by many people's standards, but in the automotive world, you've got a lot of smaller dynamics. You know, I'm sure there's sometimes in your most frustrated state, I'm sure you're thinking about like, well, Sally over at my competition has 10 times more money to spend to make that happen. What are the pros and cons of having a smaller brand in a competitive set, yet it's still not a tiny company?
Yeah, no, it's an awesome question. And you are right. I do look at my competitors and I say, man, I wish I had a little fraction more money, man, because like, think what I could do. But it's okay because, you know, it's like the beauty of constraint, right? It's like creative. The more constraints you have, sometimes the more creative you have to be. So the small company environment with, you know, you're working on pennies and dimes on the dollar, you've got to be super smart from the beginning. And I think it allows more creativity than maybe people might think, in terms of not only thinking about the work that we do, the customers that we target, how we go to market, but also in terms of, you know, looking outside the category again, right? Because I look at smaller companies, I look at D2C, digitally native brands that, hey, they've launched without massive, you know, broadcast campaigns, right? How do we learn from that? How do we be scrappier and more nimble? And quite frankly, it's the best of both worlds because I can be in an established industry. I think that's got a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, I can be a small part of that. And I can suggest change with the executive team that I'm a part of and affect that change because I only have a few of us in the room and they know me as, you know, she's going to be the change agent. She's probably going to come up with an idea here. Watch out. But I think they really appreciate that because I come at it from, I know this is going to help the entire team. So I can do that so much more easily in a smaller organization. Yeah. But it's the best of both worlds.
And so to that point, I'm sure in a lot of ways, once you calibrated real life vulnerabilities associated with COVID, you know, like hope everyone's healthy and safe. And then obviously, you know, listen, I don't think people are running out to their local dealership right now. You know, there must have been a transition in your mind, whether it was 24 hours or 24 days into this, where you're like, okay, my skill set is really needed in times like this. How have you kind of contributed? You know, I find you, and I've gotten to know you a little bit here now. You know, I think you're intuitively consumer centric, which gives you your biggest advantage. So I'm curious what your take was during this time, and were you able to, you know, adjust or create, or what happened in real life over these last 200 days?
Yeah, no, awesome question. You know, I think at the beginning, a lot of us were lost a little bit, right? In so many ways, you know, anybody that had anything to do with retail, closing down quickly. Some things are operational, some things aren't. How do you even check hours? How do you help our retailers, our dealers first and foremost was the first 24, 48 hours, few weeks, really.
Yeah.
And that still happens. So first and foremost, you know, because I think of things more broadly and customer centric, I have to think of our dealers first and foremost, and then I have to think of our customers, our end customers who buy the cars and service their cars at the same time. And I think that that first wave was really, what resources do we have? How do we help them be more comfortable with you know, being more flexible and having multiple playbooks? Because if you just have one way of doing it, right? Here's my service, here's my sales, that's what I do. And everything is pulled away from you in an instant, and you can't be operational. You're not sure if customers are comfortable coming into your store. You're not even really sure, like, where does automotive fit into all this? Are we going to see a big dive? Are we going to see a big uptick? What's going to go on? So I think a lot of it in that beginning was really reassurance, right? You know, this is what we can do to help as the corporate arm of our company. How can we help you navigate things, even as basic as make sure your Google My Business pages are updated, right? Make sure that those things are there. Make sure that people know the messaging first and foremost. So they go to your website, they have questions, that they have the information that they need. So it's really helped, and interestingly enough, to accelerate, I think, this digitization, right? This digital kind of wave that has been coming for quite a while in our industry. But
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I asked Ed earlier if it helped speed up the process. Do you feel people more senior than you, your contemporaries, people underneath you, do you feel like there's a advancement on understanding the importance of digital communication?
I think there's had to be. Yeah, absolutely. I think it accelerated in the beginning because of those basic things, right? My hours of operation. How do I tell my customers where things are at? How do I still sell cars in this environment where there's got to be no contact sales and service? And then from a customer standpoint, you know, we like to think of our customers in this neat and tidy, their old school funnel, right, this path that they take, we've talked about before, which bugs me because it doesn't look like that. Nobody is the same. We all follow different paths. And
actually, since I only have you for 2 more minutes, and I know this is something you caught my attention, bring this up in a closed environment, not in the public setting, reach versus relevance. Yeah. Because that's kind of where you're bleeding into a little bit here. Exactly. Just explain to people that concept and how you view it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it again as if you've got one customer journey or one mindset or one playbook in the way you've done business. COVID and the last several months have really taught us you've got to have a lot more variability. You have to have a lot more customization. You have to try to do your best to do one-to-one as best you can. It's so much more about relevance right now, because reach, it's helpful, it's great, of course, but in this time when customers are all over the place in terms of what they're looking for and their behaviors and their attitudes and their thoughts, then we can't just have one way to do it. And it's got to be relevant. You don't know, I may be somebody who never bought a car before. I live in New York City. Now suddenly, you know what, personal transportation, I want it, I need to get it. I've never shopped for a car before. Or you may have somebody that feels like, look, I thought I needed a car, but I'm going to put that off for that decision maybe for a few more months. So you can't talk to everybody in the same way. It's going to be lost in translation, so to speak. So it's up to us now to figure out that relevancy.
Kimberly, do you think that the creative industry, the madman, the agent, like, where do you put this onus? Because I think, you know, the thing that I came into about year 7, because I knew the digital channels so well, I understood the media part, but it was year 7 where I was like, oh, there is no creative agency to go to make 17 commercials. Let's just use that terminology, whether it's an OTT or YouTube, right? You can't go to these brilliant Wyden, Crispin, you know, Droga. There's nowhere for these big brands to go that they work with that will make 17 commercials for the price of 1. And that's kind of when we started our journey of like, can we be the ones that do that? You know, is that on the brands to require those agencies to go there? Is that on the agencies because of the consolidation? Like, why did we get to this place from your perspective?
Yeah. You know what, Gary, I think it's a combination of both. I think it has to come from the brand to say, look, I understand my customer and I should better than anyone, right? And there's not just one customer profile. There's not just one customer path. And with all of that, coupled with technology and coupled with that path to get there from interest to purchase and around again, I need to be able to customize that message for where that person is. And for a challenger brand like ours, we have to really value each of those touch points. So if I don't speak to you individually, I'm going to lose you along that path. I think it's up to us as brands. And I think agencies need to, I don't want to say wake up, but they need to perk up a little bit and say, okay, there's a business opportunity here to talk to customers in a really, individual kind of a way to make them really feel like we hear you, we want to help you, we're here along the way, along that journey. And it doesn't I don't understand a world where that seems to make sense, at least for not in terms of smaller brands like ours. So we're looking for agency partners to get ahead of that and to help us with that.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Bye,
Pleasure.
Kimberly.